So the second part of the ARC process is the next morning checking the ARC form to determine if it has been completed by all of the teachers. And so what you need to do is get into your Google account then and go into Drive and find the ARC form that either you distributed, or if someone else sent it to you, then you would go to the Shared with Me and find it in there. Now I know that I have it open here, so I'm just going to go to that particular form. Then what you simply do is click on each teacher's tab and determine that if they've entered information in. And so I work my way all the way through, and there's a couple of things that I check for. And so I'm going to start on the end here. One, I check to see if there's any names. I just assume that if there's names in there that they've entered their information. I also check to make sure that their last name goes all the way to the end, to their last entry. So if it didn't, as an example, and I will show you it on here, let's say that Mrs. Wanitzer forgot to fill down her name. Well, she very rarely does that, but just as an example, if I select the last name on the list and I put my cursor in the corner, there's a little dot in the corner. If I put my cursor on that and get a plus sign, I can now hold and drag down to the very last cell, and it will fill that down for me. I don't have to type those in. Now, a few teachers you may need to scroll because they are the ones who have some students that are requested through our intervention program. So Mr. Wiggins doesn't see anybody from his homeroom, but he has these required. So I scroll down and to see if he's put those in as well. A couple other things to check as far as besides the name that's in there. When you come across a few of them, for example, Mrs. Tank very rarely has people in, so if she doesn't have anything in there, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to expect anything from that. Tests, hopefully you'll see over here that it says test and then the teacher's name with it as well. And a few others. Mr. Yane, as an example. Mr. Yane doesn't have students himself. He meets with another teacher to work with some of those students we're intervening on. So he puts an X up here, or actually there's an X up there to show that there shouldn't be any students. So say for example a teacher was gone and they told their homeroom you need to report someplace else, and so I'm not accepting any signatures for ARC, then they would go in and simply put an X in here to show that there weren't any students, and then you don't have to be bugging them about putting in their ARC. So here's the negative part of this morning process. They have until 8 o'clock to get their ARC in. I know Michelle always looked about 7 o'clock and started checking who didn't have it in, and she would send an email to people reminding them. However you want to do that. I've kind of been running around the building with people this morning. There were 4 or 5 of them, and I just reminded them to put in their ARC. If someone has been gone, there may be an ARC slip turned into the office, and then if that's the case, then you have to enter that information in. And students put in an actual time that they arrived and a time that they sign out. We just put X's. So as we're entering information, if a teacher requests them to be there, we put an X here. Most of them are voluntary, and then if they're in these time slots, we just put an X. And we have some leeway there. It's not perfect. They may, if they're slightly into one, you kind of just use your best judgment. Most of the time the kids are pretty good about this, so we don't really try to punish them or anything for that part of it. So step 2 is making sure the ARC form is completely filled out so that we can proceed from there.